Welcome to the Reroll Multiple Martial Arts podcast, where we explore the intersections between martial arts, society, and culture. I'm Elliot.
I'm Denny.
And Denny, what's been going on? What's been on your mind?
Well, I was looking forward to getting a chance to talk to you a little bit about just the overwhelming sense of bad news. When we sat together to think about this space to record our conversations, it was really about, a somewhat safe space where you and I could be genuine, but also share our thoughts for others that would want to tune in on politics, society, and martial arts, sports, everything related and how they connect. And I was thinking if we could talk about, the news of Breonna Taylor, and it's something that many of us were waiting for, and unfortunately it's just bad news. The three police officers, one of them is indicted, two of them are not, and the charge is this reckless wanton endangerment, but not toward Breonna Taylor, but toward, it appears, the neighbor. And what I was hoping to see what you had to say was this thing that, like, during this moment, everything I watch is tainted. I don't know what word to use. It's embedded with larger issues. So, like, this weekend, I'm watching the UFC, Tyron Woodley, Covington fight. And it wasn't just a fight. It was politics playing out. It was Black Lives Matter against this rhetoric of white nationalism, or at minimum, the rhetoric of standing against Black Lives Matter. And then right after, when Woodley loses and Covington gets the mic, he goes into this awful rhetoric that is not just political, because I can respect that everyone has a right to choose for whoever you want to be president, if that's your interest. But the rhetoric was anti-Black Lives Matter. That's what he said. And to me, it's like, that's different. I mean, literally, people are saying our lives matter. So it's not just politics of, like, Republican, Democrat, conservative, progressive. When someone speaks that overtly against Black Lives Matter, I feel that they're really saying, literally, Black lives do not matter. And as I'm watching it, and I'm watching it with my daughter, I was hurt. I was upset. And I would love to hear your thoughts between that intersection, that just how that politics takes right now. It is embedded in everything we do. We're watching sports, and it's a political issue now.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, or for better or for worse, I was not surprised by anything, Covington says. I think it's, like you said, it's an act, but it is kind of not a little bit not the best taste, in my opinion. But, going into that, I was rooting for Woodley, but, seeing his last performance against Gilbert Burns, I didn't think he had the gas tank to go against Covington, unfortunately. And, I kind of went in with no expectations, but, you're right. This whole rhetoric, this whole, leading up to the fight, with them, wearing what they're wearing, Woodley wearing, Black Lives Matter related clothing, and Covington wearing, his MAGA hat and stuff. It was part of it is to hype the fight, but the hype is it's just one of many things going on. And, what's interesting and funny is the, somewhat viral video of, Covington getting really mad against Usman. Usman was just kind of like, toying with him. This is during an interview, them two, briefly talking. he was kind of toying with them and kind of like not playing into Covington's his jokes, his verbal games. And you see Covington just start talking louder and louder and shouting because he wasn't really getting his way. And I thought that was interesting. Did you happen to see that?
I missed it, but I think that's where it gets really kind of interesting for me, because I believe most people have come to see the UFC as an entertainment venue that is combat based, so that the sport is somewhat not rigged, unlike, for example, watching a movie or some of the other like WWE, performances that are athletic, they're beautiful, but it's not necessarily two athletes trying to kind of best each other. And yet the UFC has entered a realm of trying to really capitalize on entertainment to sell the sport. Something that other sports do very little, I think. Like when you watch a basketball game, I don't think the respective teams have to hype up the same way. Like they can just play ball and whoever wins gets more attention. But not so much for a lot of these athletes, the MMA field. They really are almost like actors, and they're told, like, it's up to you to bring people to the seats, to fill the arenas with seats. I mean, to fill the seats in the arena, and that puts a lot of pressure on them. And there comes this awkward persona and gamemanship, and it's ridiculous for many of us that just want to see them fight because we respect them on their own merit. But to the point, that's where I place Colby Covington. Like he learned the game from some of the other better performers. Conor McGregor, I think, probably is the most recognized one. But he took it somewhere else. I just think he took it somewhere else. And where he took it is in this pro-Trump, which again, I am not at all slamming anyone for being pro-Trump. I'm not pro-Trump, but I can even tolerate being in a society that has different political points of view. What I'm missing here is, at what point does the rhetoric become non-productive, dangerous, and hurtful? And for him not to catch that at this time, we don't need people putting more gas on the fire, right? And I've heard some people going like, that's what the people in the streets are doing. I'm like, no, they're not doing that. In fact, they are literally putting their bodies out there because they believe so strongly that the time is now to really say enough is enough. And this moment of saying enough is enough is one that is 240 plus years of continuation. So it is not that we are in 2020 for the first time saying we live in a nation state where power uses race to place some of us into a much more vulnerable position where we're risking our lives by just existing. But the athletes are now being forced to bring it up. We see tennis players with their masks, with the names of the people that have been killed. And then we also see, this, I think even the sports industry, like football owners, team owners are finally saying, hey, we will back up our teams. And then I think about the UFC and going like, what are they doing? Why is Dana White letting this happen? Dana White's been open. He's pro-Trump. Again, not a big deal for me. But I'm thinking there's a difference in knowing that, like, politically you may be conservative and that's why you vote for Donald Trump. But also you must be able to see when things are dangerous. Like, I don't think we need someone having this level of, I'm going to use the word hatred because I don't even know. I believe Colby Covington is just an act. So I don't know if he really has hatred, but there's people out there that are literally thinking that he's true. And that's what's throwing me in this fit of confusion, because I was like, can I even support this? Like, I've made a commitment that, like, I only see the things that are streamed within what I've already signed up for. But Covington, I'm not going to pay any pay-per-views for him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate because I think like Usman fought against him and I didn't put $1 on it. I was just like, I'm not gonna do this supporting of him, because I know that's what he wants. He's that ridiculous because he wants us to pay our money, but I want to say it's counterproductive.
Yeah, I was surprised that when the protests first started this summer, that not more athletes in the UFC were talking about it. At first, I was like, wow, this has been a little bit silent. Was there some sort of clause in their contract that prevents them from doing that? And then later, it doesn't seem that way. But, at the same time, I have to think, that a lot of these athletes in general, and I'm not trying to, reinforce this stereotype, but a lot of athletes, they train every day and they're not really looking at the news. They're not reading up on op-eds and looking at, foreign policy or anything like that. And so, and for lack of better words, a lot of, athletes are jocks, and, we all know those stereotypes. But at the same time, a lot of people are also, I think some people, they don't want to become that poster child, that responsibility becomes, to bear on them. Oh, okay, I'm the, POC athlete in this organization that has to talk about that because I was the first one. Like, I think there's a little bit of that. And, but at the same time, I think there's more and more support. For example, when Angela Hill, she posted some stuff on her Instagram, and I thought it was cool. Talk about her being the first, African American woman in UFC, main event and everything like that. And also, Michelle Watterson, she had supported Dana White in his Trump support, and this was on Instagram. And Angela Hill was like, "Oh, dude, I can't wait to fight you. Can't wait to punch your face." And that kind of sparked some online stuff. And which at the same time, like we're talking with you, how much of this is hyping up the fight. But I thought Angela Hill had a really good chance, really good match. I thought that a lot, including Dana White, a lot of people thought that Angela Hill beat Claudia Gadelha, during that a few months back. And so I was like, man, Angela Hill, man, overkill. Let's do this. But yeah, I think it's good that there are a lot of athletes that are supportive of each other. You hear Israel Adesanya, and Usman. Adesanya's like, dude, I'm not gonna try to move up weight class and try to dethrone Usman. Like, what's the point of that? And so on and so forth. And so, yeah, there seems to be it's a mixed bag, especially in the UFC, where there's a lot of the culture is just a little bit different than the NBA or NFL, or not.
I am going to put like objection or I challenge you.
Yes, please.
Now, our conversations are not really based like that. The reason I'm saying that is because I was listening to other talks, and when they're being polite, they're kind of go like, let me challenge you on that. No, but I was just thinking about something that you said, like, these athletes, maybe they're not in verse, but I versed politically, and I go to myself like, no, this moment doesn't require intellectual investment. We live it, and we live it politically, so that some of us that are going like, these people on the streets are thugs, you can say that genuinely because that's how you perceive the world. That's how you stand politically. That like these troublemakers, I put that in quotes, because that's not my perspective. I'm just saying that's what I've heard people say. And I realized, like, if I dismiss their position as like, oh, they're uninformed, I'm not giving credit to how they are informed. And they're informed by having lived up to the age of 25, up to the age of 50. And that's how they filter the world. So then I'm thinking about the athletes. That's all you need. You just need to live in this planet and make up your mind on how you will see this life. You know, like, is it made up of people that are quote unquote just causing trouble? And I think about that and I go like, yeah, that's a very easy way of placing it. You know, like I got into a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was just like, if they don't like it, they should just leave. And I was like, man, that's still being thrown out there in 2020. Like, I heard that when I was a little kid, and I heard it for the first time as a little kid being said to an older person, right? And then one day it was said to me, you know, and I was like, man, and then this person said it, and I was like, man, that's ridiculous. And then I say ridiculous because that's what I told them. I was like, you give no credit to all of the troublemakers, right? Like we got the right to vote. You know, we got slavery out of the way. We got all these things because we were the troublemakers, because we were the ones that were told, if you don't like it, why don't you leave? And I was like, no, that didn't happen. So how can they not see that this has been happening for over 240 plus years? So that's what I'm standing. And when I think about these athletes, I think about them as the working class. There's only a few of them that are the millionaires. The average person is making about $4,000 to fight. Not the average, but the low level prelim fighters. And that, again, my heart goes out because I know that I'm overthinking it, because most people go like, you're just supposed to watch it and enjoy it. And I was like, yes, but if I paid $60, can we give everyone $1 and see how much we can put together? You know, like I would love to see a way of reframing the way that we think of compensation in different fields, like in entertainment, like the movies. My friends that would work as like gaffers or even like extras never made the kind of money as the quote unquote A-list stars. But without them, the movie wouldn't get made. And I was like, man, can you kick them down a couple $100 or can you give them a 0.001% cut on this film so that they can get a little check, maybe just like $1,000 check every year, you know, because they worked on that one film. And I think about this idea of these fighters. Can they advocate so openly when they are vulnerable? And we know they're not. We know that they cannot be as open because, one, specifically we're talking about the UFC here, but this could probably be argued in some of the other promotions, is that it's a centralized owner. You're in the owner's shop and you are under contract. You're told what you can do. You know, you can't fight in other promotions. And you are also kind of like slowed down if you're not a good team player. Tyron Woodley said that himself when he was the champion. He said, if I ever lose, I may never get a chance to come back. Because he's like, the reason I am getting more fights is because I literally hold the belt, so they can't pass me up. But if I ever lose, I'm scared. He didn't say I'm scared. He said I'm concerned that Dana White and all of the top people that don't like him, because he would say, like, they don't like me because I'm not a company man. I speak my own thoughts. And he also put hints of racism. He would say, I'm a black man and I don't present what they want. And I think that's it, man. Like the UFC, like MMA in general, it's a new sport, but it's still controlling the bodies of people. And here I want to make it even more obvious of what I'm talking about. It's controlling the bodies of people of color. Like, people will say, well, the UFC has a lot of white bodies too. When I see the UFC and I see a predominantly like people of color line up, or when two black bodies are fighting, it takes me back to the conversation when we were critiquing the NBA and the NFL capitalizing on black bodies to make a few rich men very wealthy.
Yeah, I was listening to Joe Rogan, and Demetrius Johnson, Mighty Mouse, he said that for his title shot, he made $14,000, and that he had a day job up until he was, a top level contender. And so, when he got that phone call from the UFC, for the title shot, he's like, I'll get back to you. And he calls his boss. Hey, can I get this? Can I get this day off? Can I get this? And his boss is like, yeah, take the week off. You got the week off. Yeah, do your thing. And so yeah, and these guys are really, or these people in this scene, this discourse, trying to make it work. And seeing this, recently with John Jones speaking up, talking about pay, Jorge Masvidal, and most recently, Dustin Poirier, coming up with the Ferguson fight. They're talking about, the disparity, of pay between fighters and, bosses, for lack of better words. And yeah, these all these fighters, they have, contracts, they have no job security, and a lot of these people, their mental health, some of them, their mental health is going to decline. And that's why, for example, Demetrius Johnson, he's not going to stand and bang. He's going to have that. He's going to be very forgetful in many years. He has to in and out, angles and be out of the way. So it is concerning. And like you said, it's a new sport. This thing is so new, and it's changing every year.
But I'd like to think that at this moment, there's almost a need for people to be allowed to be themselves, because I hear people go, there's a separation between sports and politics. Like, keep your politics away from my sports. And I've heard many other commentators really reference the history of sports as always being political. When we think about the baseball tradition of being a white only spot, and then Robinson takes in number 42. It was political from the beginning, so we've never had a moment where politics didn't come into the field of sports. And we've never been away from the idea of even whiteness versus blackness in combat sports. The great white hype. There's always this idea we've had too many, quote unquote, black boxers. And then the boxing field starts looking for man, we need a white heavyweight to really try and bring it up, and I think that's difficult because at one point the fighters themselves are fatigued because you can't carry so much. The sport is hard enough, right? You're gonna get in the ring, and there's another body who's trying to hurt you, but then you carry so much symbolic weight. When I saw Tyron Woodley kind of live stream afterwards in the hospital, he apologized. And I'm going nah, you don't need to apologize to no one, but I know what you felt because we were all cheering. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I feel like you didn't have to apologize to me, but right before when you were fighting, I was like, beat him for me. You know what I mean?
I'm just thinking of passes and who gets passes and who doesn't, to say whatever they want, and obviously, I mean, whoever is the agrees with the establishment, it's easier. You know, my friend who said he was training, and you know, most of the guys, you know, in his jiu-jitsu class, you know, they come from very, you know, conservative Catholic families, and he's just like, yeah, that's just the culture of that gym, and that's how the way it is. I mean, you know, even with, you know, women in the sport, you know, women in UFC, you know, I remember, you know, years ago, Dana White was laughed like, no, that's not going to be a women in UFC. And, you know, later, you know, with Ronda Rousey, you know, listening to her story, she's like, dude, I've been laughed out of the gym, you know, just trying to find a gym where people would take her seriously and would, you know, really, you know, treat her as an equal was very difficult. And, you know, of course, you know, there's Gina Carano and other trailblazers, but and other people, you know, those are just, you know, UFC people. But, you know, with Ronda having that big spotlight, you know, and her story, dude, it's tough. You know, she had to work a lot harder than some of the guys, and you know, she has to have a career. There's no safety net. You know, so, you know, that's cool. She's in the, you know, WWE now, you know, making money, and I respect that. I respect that hustle, and yeah, and I think you know, a lot of people really over you know, they don't take into consideration a lot of this stuff. Like you hear of like you know, women, you know, in jiu-jitsu class, like, you know, it's just like, oh, these like creepy dudes, and it's just like, oh, they don't want to be, there's certain people that don't want to be there because they're just hit on all the time, you know, and it sucks, you know, being in this. And I know we're jumping to a lot of topics, but you know, just issues that I find that bother me at the gym or the dojo or wherever. You know, I think about this stuff a lot, and it's hard because I'm not gonna just, you know, sit down with my sparring partner and be like, hey man, like, so what do you think about, you know, the environmental impacts of, you know, it's just like, it's hard, you know, we're just thinking about training, but that, you know, it goes to part of, in a local level, part of the beauty of training, because some people, you know, some people say that, hey, there's cops, people who've served time, you know, just all these different kinds of people of different backgrounds and walks of life training at the gym. And that is something beautiful about that.
I saw that post circulating, and it was placed well. I mean, it got a bunch of likes, and what it was something like that, like something about the beauty of the gym, the jiu-jitsu dojo, where like, I may be getting it wrong, but I think it actually said like police officers and criminals. Like it's something like that. Like,
yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah. And I was like, so one of the things I think about it is that I'm confused in how to express that, like, just because we don't talk about it in the gym doesn't make the gym a healthy spot.
True. Absolutely.
So for me, like, silence is not the marker of health and power. Mm-hmm. So that, in fact, silence is what many of us have had to contend with. So that we've been quiet. We keep a lot of our pain and our fears and our injuries to ourselves.
Yes.
And then we actually do it in the place we shouldn't. So I know that we've skipped a little bit from location. We're talking about sports to the gym, but I don't think it's that far, because the reason these athletes are in that octagon as a sports venue is because they hit the gym. They are in the gym. They do jiu-jitsu, they do Muay Thai, they do kickboxing, they do wrestling, and those avenues are the places that we know. We know what it looks like. And one of the things that I think, it upsets me is that it's not open to all of us to speak up. In fact, most of the people that speak up are the ones that are pro the establishment. So that We have a long history of people being very comfortable talking about being a police officer. But a lot of us don't get to say, one, the police officers intimidate me, or I've been in the another side of the police, so I've had handcuffs put on me, or the correctional facilities and the legal system is one that I know. If you talk like that in the gym, someone will tell you, hey, you're making everybody else uncomfortable. And my question is that, like, well, how come the cop gets to say, hey, I put 2 bad guys away, and tells these war stories? And this is what I remember. I would be in the gym, and they would go into this thing of like what they did this weekend. And everyone was excited. Oh, tell me more. And how do you chase them down? And like, yeah, and I tackled them down and I put them in this lock, and like little kids, their eyes. And I'm going like, I need to get up and leave. I was like, because I never feel safe, because I fear that I am the one who's going to be chased. I am the one who's going to get put on handcuffs. And the weird thing about this is that I represent the quote unquote good ones. Like within the politics of respectability, I know that I am that square, that nice, safe guy. And now that I'm getting older, I'm even safer. Because when I was in my 20s, my youth made me a threat. I'm older now. I'm getting gray hair. I can tell people don't lock their doors like they used to when I walk, or they don't cross the street anymore. And I'm like, okay, I can live with that. I was getting tired of that myself. And I think the police no longer see me as a physical threat just by standing. They're like, he's not going to do much. But to the point that if I feel this way, how do the ones that have the tattoos on their bodies, and I can see them pull their sleeves so we don't see them, or those that say things like, hey, like, don't tell anyone that I just got, out of a juvenile hall, last year. Can I come and train, but don't talk about that? That's what I'm talking about. Like, we keep saying that the dojo is the place where we all meet. Yeah, we meet there, but a lot of us are told or get the point, don't talk. Leave that for the police officers and the pro-establishment.
No, totally. It's interesting to see the different the vibe of each gym and the people who attend, and who, like you said, who talks more and who doesn't, who makes the jokes and stuff like that. And and there are people, who are just, some guys aren't necessarily political, but they're working class, and they feel that that hardship. I don't remember one guy. He's like, dude, he's like, I have a college degree. I work at a warehouse. He's like, man, like, if you hear of any jobs, just let me know. It was my first time meeting him too, and like, it's like, wow, and thinking about the tuition at the jiu-jitsu school. I'm like, man, he's dedicating a lot of his resources to this, and man, I respect that. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, I have roommates and everything, and so and part of me is, I barely talked with him. I'm probably gonna never see him again, but it's like, how do I open up those conversations and get people comfortable to talk about certain things, because it affects I'm sure it affects a lot more people at the gym, and we don't talk about that. It's and it's part of that guy stuff too, like not showing a certain type of masculinity and trying to be tough, make tough jokes or funny jokes or some stuff, but it is interesting to see the dynamic though. So this a younger guy in high school might make he's like, oh dude, I'm not gonna, it's a high school kid, he's like, I'm not gonna do jiu-jitsu, I'm it's too gay. And then the coach at the time was like, well, when you're more comfortable with your sexuality, join my class. And it's like, things like that, little pushes and stuff like that. So, there is that, there is, a lot of different people. And so I don't know, it's a mixed bag, but I agree, it is like, it's a microcosm of society. There's a structure, within like within the gym, there's a structure, and, whoever is a higher level, you kind of, I don't want to say rock the boat. You rock the boat, you kind of just leave the gym. I mean, I've seen some drama in different gyms.
That is an option. I think the conversation about keeping quiet and not being comfortable, speaking your political views, originally started because we're talking about like the UFC and Tyron Woodley and this idea that his fight, which I saw, and I was really kind of surprised. I was like, he's not fighting. He's not being aggressive. He's not taking any risks. And to some degree, I think you make a point that these fighters are not really there. They should not be there to hurt themselves just for our entertainment. I can think about like Floyd Mayweather. I completely dislike his fighting style. I find it boring, but I'll give him credit. Like, hey, he's still in the ring and the other fighters are not able to hurt him. And he says himself, like, hey, I'm going to win, So then the point being is that, like, when I saw the fight, I was like, man, this is such a bad fight for Tyron Woodley. He's not going to win. But then it was so much bigger. It was not about just watching a fight. It was about what he represented and what his win would represent and what his loss would represent. And I think it has to do with the way that we know that not everyone is able to even speak. And if he says something openly, it's because he was one of the few risk takers. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, I think you've mentioned it, I mentioned it, that this is a job for them. And economics, makes a lot of us keep quiet. We've been there. We've been in jobs that we didn't like, but we couldn't quit, and we had to keep our mouth shut for a minute, hoping that we, move on to somewhere else. And I think that's where we're at right now, and thinking about the sports field. And I feel that the space of sports is, there's no going back. So that to those that are saying like, keep sports separate from politics. First, it never was separate. And now more than ever, it cannot be separate.
And with that said, this has been the Reroll Multiple Martial Arts podcast. Until next time, peace.